Hello, hello, hello. It's your boy Kato Ken again. So today I wanted to talk more about mental stack as a follow-up to my neutral guide, Street Fighter 6. The funny thing is I think I've learned a bit more since then and I've gotten better in my own neutral, especially in the master rank. I'm starting to be able to like climb back up instead of getting freaking destroyed. But mainly, so what is mental stack? Mental stack is just really the fighting game term for cognitive overload. So, you know, when you look in psychology or when you study like the human mind, you essentially understand that our working memory, or the part of our conscious mind that remembers things, it essentially has a limit. Like it has a capacity limit, meaning there's a limit to the amount of things that you can think about at once. What the mental stack is, and the whole point of mental stack is, in fighting games, pretty much everything is unreactable, especially if you're like a newer player. If you're a newer player and you don't have a lot of information or understanding of fighting games, and you haven't built up that fundamental skill and fundamental knowledge, it seems like you're trying to react to everything with wild reaction speed, and that's not what goes on in high level play. A high level play is mostly anticipation of certain options. And that comes down to knowing what the matchup is and understanding ranges and spacing. For example, where Ryu is right now, the most likely things I would think he would do is throw a fireball. So I would be looking mainly for like a fireball, or maybe I'll look for like a jump. So the key to reducing mental stack is essentially understanding of the matchup. Now the thing that makes Street Fighter 6 so particularly hard, and why particularly hard in the neutral, and why everyone complains about this game, is because there's a lot of mental stack. So when you're trying to play the traditional footsie game, you're looking for pokes, you're looking to whiff punish, you're looking to counter poke, and you're looking to stop and jump. If you can't stop jumping, you're not going to be able to play a grounded based game, because there's no point. People are just going to jump on you. So the first thing you have to do to play footsie is you have to stop people from jumping on you. And once you can consistently do that, what you need to do is you need to outplay people on the ground. So what that would look like is, you know, a combination of poking, counter poking, whiff punishing them, and also using like character specific neutral skips like your dive kick and whatnot, or whatever your character has. Or maybe if you have like a fireball, you would be playing more of a spacing game. It just depends. But the main thing is with footsies is it's kind of like a rock paper scissors. If you're playing a rushdown character and you're trying to get in, mainly what you'll be doing is you'll be trying to poke and like abuse and trying to get in. You're trying to like counter poke. You're trying to get poked. You're trying to hit your special cancelable move so you can get in. And what the opponent is supposed to do, they're really supposed to like try to walk back and maybe try to whiff punish you. Because if you're walking forward and you're poking, the way you beat that is, you know, whiff punishing them or counter poking them, right? So then it becomes like a triangle. So if you're trying to whiff punish somebody, that means you're constantly walking back out of space. You're trying to be out of their space. So then what they can do is walk forward on you and like push you back with pokes. So then the key is, well, when it comes to talking about all this, it's like a triangle. So if you're walking back constantly trying to whiff punish people, just walk forward. But if you want to stop somebody from walking forward, all you have to do is poke at them. But then that allows you to like whiff punish them. And then when you're focusing on this ground game, you're focusing on these things. That allows for things like neutral skip dive kick. That allows for neutral skip dive kick. That allows for jumping in. That allows for dashing in. And that was pretty much the neutral in like Street Fighter 5. All you would do is try to like, you know, try to poke, counter poke and get in, and try to whiff punish buttons to get in. And so then what you would do is, you know, if you thought the opponent was going to try to dash in on you, or you thought it was going to try to jump in on you, you would try to do things like low committal buttons, like a light kick or like a light punch, because they allowed you to check dashes while also looking at the air for anti-airs. So that allowed you to like have solid solutions in neutral. So you could like look for the air and look at the ground. Of course, you would still get mental stacks sometimes, because sometimes you wouldn't be ready for things because of the timing and cycling of the opponent's options. But for the most part, it was pretty reactable looking for things in Street Fighter 5 for the most part. But of course, if you wanted to be optimal, you would try to punish like a dash with a jab or something like that. So, you know, you could get the knockdown and you could get in and range pressure. The thing about Street Fighter 6 is, on top of playing the footsie game, and yes, this game does have footsies, you have to worry about people doing drive rush in neutral. And the reason why you have to worry about that is because if you're playing the footsie game, right, you're pushing the opponent back and stuff like that. Like I said, what they're gonna eventually do, they're gonna start walking back, and they're gonna realize, man, I can't press buttons against this guy. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna want to try to jump in on you, or better yet, they're gonna want to try to drive rush. And drive rush in the mid range, especially if you're not looking for it, is blatantly unreactable. It's meant to be unreactable because the developers don't want this game to be like Street Fighter V, where everything is pretty reaction based. They want you to be actively. They want you to be more proactively trying to stop drive rush, because like I said in my previous video, if you're trying to react to drive rush in neutral, but you're playing the neutral game and you're also trying to react to the jump in, you're gonna get overwhelmed because these options, their frame data is too different, and they're showing you too many options at once. You're gonna get overwhelmed. It's too much on your mental stack. You can't improve your mental capacity. You can't improve the amount of information you can take in and hold in your working memory by trying to improve it like a muscle. But what you have to do, you have to get more efficient. You have to chunk information and see the connection between information. That's how you get more efficient with your mental stack. And that's why higher level players react faster. It's because they have a better understanding of the situation, so they know what options to use. And the way you understand that is by understanding what your neutral options are, what ranges you should use those neutral options are, and understanding how they interplay with each other. So like I said, you walk forward, they're supposed to poke at you to keep you out. And then if you want to stop that, you have to whiff punish them, or you have to use counter poke buttons and mix up your timing so you can get in. But then if you're doing that, your opponent, they should start wanting to walk back against you, and because they don't want to be in that range where you're poking and counter poking them or whiff punishing them. But they can't keep walking back forever, because if they walk back forever, well, you end up in the corner basically. So what can they do to stop you from moving forward, but also stay at a decent spacing to where you can't poke them or counter poke them, or where they can get you to miss-space a dive kick so then they can anti-air you, or whatever your neutral skip option is for your character specifics. What can they do? They can walk back, and then they can drive rush in on you, or they can walk back, or they can neutral jump on you, along with mixing up buttons. And if they play like a Shoto like Ryu, or they play somebody with a fireball, what they'll do is they'll mix in fireballs too, because they're a close poke, and you can't just you can't press through them most of the time. So that's what people do. So how do you deal with the mental stack of you trying to walk forward and play footsies and get in, and also them walking back and trying to keep you out at a good range, and them doing drive rush in, or them doing jumping, or even them doing something like a neutral jump to make you hesitate to get in? Well, what you do is you play the footsie game, and then you start pushing them back or whiff punishing with your counter pokes in your footsie game. And then what they're gonna do is they're gonna move back. They're gonna be like, man, I can't contest this guy's neutral. He's too good. So they're gonna start neutral jumping, and then they're gonna try to drive rush in, and they're gonna try to jump in. So when they start neutral jumping, one thing you can do, if you're close enough and you know they're gonna neutral jump, you could do heavy dive kick. You could do heavy DP with Cammy, or maybe you could do DP with another character or something like that. Another thing you could do, a universal insert. If you think they're gonna neutral jump like that, you think they're gonna neutral jump, you could jump in. You could jump in with an air to air button if you're close enough. Something like that, right? And like I said, also I'll show you. You do that with Cammy too as well. So basically, essentially, that's how you would deal with neutral jump. If you think they're gonna neutral jump in the mid range when you're moving forward. If you think, I believe it's one of these options. Yeah. So if you think you're poking at them and they're walking back, right, and you think they're gonna freaking drive rush, you drive rush in first, so you can avoid that mix-up. So you drive rush in first, so you can avoid the mix-up of them trying. So you can avoid this. So you can avoid the mix-up of, oh my god, I don't know if they're gonna drive rush in, and I don't know if they're gonna jump in, because that is a 50-50. Because if you're trying to play neutral, you're trying to play the footsie game, you're focused on this, and then they just jump, or then they just drive rush in, that becomes unreactable. Because the only way you can react to drive rush is to specifically look for it. So then if you start hesitating, and then you start specifically looking for drive rush, they're just gonna keep walking back and they're gonna keep you out. Or maybe they will drive rush in, or maybe they'll do this. And you don't want to play that game. You don't want to get into that guessing game. So when you start poking them and pushing them back, they start wanting to move back and stay out of your range. Drive rush in. Use one of your good drive rush buttons. That's plus on block, so you can start doing pressure. And then if they start trying to be smart, and they start trying to like move back and like time their neutral jump, or they start trying to like like check you, that's when you just walk forward. You start poking them. Or like I showed you before, they start trying to neutral jump. But the point is, yeah. So they start trying to neutral jump, and then you just forward, and then you just call it out, and you forward jump. Yeah. Or if you know that they're about to neutral jump and you have a DP, you do something like that. And that's essentially, like, that will help you alleviate your mental stack. Because for a long time I had problems, especially with like Shotos. Like, I could play the neutral and get in and advance towards them, and I could get around their fireballs. But the problem was when they started neutral jumping, or when they started forward, or when the problem was they started neutral jumping, or they would forward jump, or they would drive rush in. And I specifically did not have an answer to if they jumped in or if they drive rush in, because I was always trying to react and punish drive rush. But you're not going to be able to consistently do that in this game. The game is built for that not to work. So what you need to do is, when they're hesitating, when you push them back and they're walking back and they're trying not to commit, because they're trying to look for your buttons. They're trying to deal with that. They're trying to basically walk back but keep their spacing, so they don't keep walking back and they don't walk themselves to the corner. If they're trying to stay out of your range so you can't counter poke them, and they're trying to whiff punish you and stop you from getting in. So if they're hesitating, looking for those buttons, or looking for those options, drive rush in. Or what you do is you dash in. Or what you do is you use your character's specific neutral skip or whatever, and then you get in that way. And then once they start trying to be crafty, and then they try to like look for that and check that too, what you just do is you just move in, and then you just use safe buttons to poke at them. Or what you do is you get ready for the whiff punish. Or what you do is you counter poke with a button like stand medium kick and Cammy, and then you do things like that. And then then it becomes Street Fighter neutral. It just becomes cycling your options and countering your opponent and knowing what they're gonna do and taking educated guesses and risks. And then it just becomes a deep mind game at that point. And that's essentially how you start overcoming mental stack. You play the game a lot, and then you see what options your opponent likes to use and at what ranges, and then you start coming up with counters to those options, and then they're going to present you counters with those options. And then what you have to do, it starts becoming, okay, who can understand the other opponent quickly enough to where I can counter you quickly enough to where I can get in, and, I get my advantage, and then I start doing pressure. And that's basically fighting games. So I'll leave some examples of these things and like how to counter them. I'll put some gameplay so you can see this. But that's essentially what I want to talk about today. So mental stack, is basically just talking about cognitive load and cognitive overload, and that just means your mind has a certain capacity to think about a certain amount of things and hold a certain amount of information in its working memory. Also, this is why you watch replays, because you can't remember everything that happens in a match most of the time. So to get better at like adaptation and remembering things, one thing you do is like watch your replays and do training mode, because it'll help you slow things down and you can get a very good understanding of like what's happening and why, and what your options are to counter things. So that's how you reduce mental stack. That's how you get a better understanding of what's going on. And like I said, in this game, as a follow-up to my neutral guide, like I said, yeah, you can do stuff like parry if you want to try to react to drivers, stuff like that. But personally, something that Mr. Miyagi said, the best block is not to be there, and I would apply that to fighting games as well. The best way to get out of the corner, if you're in the corner, don't be there. Do your best options not to be there. The best way to block a mix-up, don't be there. Avoid the situation. And of course, you're not always going to be able to avoid the situation, because like I said, if all you're doing is drive rushing in doing, if all you're doing is drive rushing in neutral skips or dashing or stuff like that, and the opponent is seeing that, they'll adapt to you and they'll start poking you. They'll start doing safe checks. They'll do hard checks and call you out. They'll just do things to stop you. So, but if you're playing the neutral game, if you're playing the full neutral game, you're doing the walk forward, you're doing the walk back, you're doing the counter pokes, you're doing the whiff punishes, you can start overloading their mental stack, and they'll start getting scared and they'll start moving back to keep you out, and then you just drive rush in, or then you just jump, or then you just you know, dash in, or you dive kick in. You do your neutral skip options, and then it becomes, you know, a deeper mind game. It becomes a triangle again, like I said. This is just an added layer to the game because of Street Fighter 6. Like I said, Street Fighter 5, you could just pretty much like do light buffers and like react to like a possible dash, and then also react to a possible jump in. But in this game, they added in drive rush because they didn't want people to just react to everything. So then they built in a 50-50 jump, drive rush, or neutral jump, and you need to know how to take care of that 50-50. And like I said, a way to deal with 50-50s is option selects. Don't be there. So how do you don't be there? After you start making them scared and move back, start drive rushing in, start jumping in, start dashing in. And that's all I really wanted to say, guys. And thank you for listening and watching. So now I'm gonna just show you guys some gameplay, and that'll be all from me today.